My name is AnnLarson, and I'm a coordinator for Strike Debt.
And when we talk about a system based on debt, what do we mean by that?
Well, debt is one of the primary ways that the 1% profits from the labor of the 99%. So 3/4 of U.S. households are now in debt, some kind of debt. Student debt, mortgage debt, medical debt, all these different forms of debt. 3/4 of American households are in debt, and even people that don't have personal debt are still affected by debt, because in the United States, many of our cities and towns are in debt to Wall Street. So debt is something that really affects everybody, and it's a primary method of discipline and control of the 99% by the 1%.
How is it a method of control? How can they control you with the debt?
Well, for example, if you have a lot of personal debt, for example, if you have student debt, as many of us do who come from the Occupy movement and are involved in strike debt, it affects every aspect of your life. First of all, whether or not you have to go into debt to get an education impacts whether you'll go to school in the first place. Many people don't go to college. Most low-income students don't attend college, don't complete degrees because of the debt load that they would be forced to carry. And even those that end up going to college or completing degrees, the amount of debt that you accumulate impacts what job you choose. I use the word choice there. It's really not a choice. And it impacts the job that you must get after graduation. It impacts your major. It impacts where you can live, whether or not you can afford to buy a home, have children, do all these things that are just part of human aspiration and human dignity and creativity. Being in debt really affects whether or not you can live your life. And that's what I mean by a form of control and discipline, is that every choice that you make, you have to consider these debts and how you're going to pay them really for the rest of your life in many cases.
How did it get so far? How did we get there?
Well, that's a really good question. I think, in the case of student debt, for example, it's really that we live in a society that's profit-driven, right? Capitalism is a profit-driven economic system. And so everything has to produce profit. And that's really the essential point. And so education, which used to be considered a public good, right? We used to have colleges which were free or very low cost for much of the 20th century. And all of a sudden, the 1% started to realize, hey, this is a center of potential profit that we have to tap into. So they started charging tuition. And now all of a sudden we have students going into debt, tens of thousands of dollars, for an education that should really be a public good. We all benefit when we live in a society with educated people, and that shouldn't be a source of profit. So really how we got to this point is that we live in an economic system where everything must produce a profit, and that profit has to be accumulated by a very small number of people that then use it to control the rest of us.
What is wrong with the system of credit scoring?
Well, the credit reporting agencies are very interesting and crucial and not part of this problem, and they're not talked about very much. Because what the credit reporting agencies do is they determine your value to the 1% in terms of how much wealth can be extracted from you. So to have a good credit score, number one, you have to have debt or have had debt, right? Because if you're going to have a good credit score, it means that you've had debt in the past and then you paid it off, or you're in debt and you pay regularly on time every month. So really what a credit score means is that you're a good debtor and that you are a source of profit for the banking sector, for the 1%. So the credit reporting agencies are an important sort of node in this debt network that keep us all in debt and that really define who we are. We've come to feel like our credit score defines who we are and determines whether we can buy things. In many cases, you can't even get a job without a good credit score because employers are checking your credit score to make sure they want to hire you. It's very hard to rent an apartment without a good credit score. So this idea that we have to be good debtors in order to have the basic things that we need to live, the credit reporting agencies maintain that system.
Is there a way to break free from that system?
Well, yeah, I think there is. I think it has to do with collective social action. We cannot challenge this regime of indebtedness as individuals, as well as we can working together. Social movements throughout history have produced a lot of change, and we sometimes don't think of that. We remember the civil rights movement. I mean, change is possible if we work together. It's not easy. But I think one of the things we're trying to do in Strike Debt that is very important is we're trying to change the morality of debt and get people to think differently about debt and how it works. There's an idea that people have that to be in debt is shameful, and to not pay your debts is shameful, and that you've done something wrong if you're in debt, or that if you don't pay your debts on time that you're a bad person. And we don't believe that's the case. In fact, we think that it's exactly the opposite, that the lender, the firms that are issuing these credit lines, they're the ones who are at fault. And the moral question should actually be directed at them, not the debtor. So just in getting people to rethink the relationship to debt and to just realize, hey, I didn't do anything wrong, I think that that's a really big step that we're trying to take right now.
And what are some of the actions that Strike Debt is doing?
Well, we have several initiatives that are ongoing, and we're starting new ones all the time. We have the Debt Resisters Operations Manual, which you can download on our website at strikedebt.org. And what the Debt Resisters Manual is it's a series of chapters on different kinds of debt: payday loans, municipal debt, student debt, medical debt, credit card debt, mortgage debt, and it provides some strategies that individuals can use to resist that debt, in some cases to not pay, but also, and more importantly, I think, it also proposes some collective strategies that we can all work on together to challenge the debt system. So the DROM, the Debt Resisters Operations Manual, is one of our initiatives, and we have hard copies that we've shipped around the country, and it's gotten a lot of press, and people are really excited about it. We also have the Rolling Jubilee initiative, which you can check out at rollingjubilee.org. And Rolling Jubilee is a campaign to purchase defaulted debt for pennies on the dollar on a secondary debt market. And instead of collecting on that debt like a debt collector would do, we just abolish it. And we kind of launched the campaign on November 15th of 2012 with a telethon, a Rolling Jubilee telethon, where we raised money for the Jubilee. And it's far exceeded our expectations. Our initial goal was to raise $50,000, which would erase approximately $1 million in debt, but we actually raised far, far more than that. And right now we've raised about $500,000, over $500,000, and so with that we can abolish about $10 million in debt. So that's another one of our initiatives.